Dennis Young here, your host for Primitive Substance, where we explore the world of music, great artists, and I have an innovative artist today, musician, inventor of the hyperbass, and it's my pleasure to have Michael Manring on. Michael, thank you for coming on.
The pleasure's mine, Dennis. Thanks so much for having me.
And let's start by going over your early days of how you got interested in music and then the bass.
I was always kind of a music nerd. I always loved music. And my parents kind of noticed when I was a kid that I was spending a lot of time playing the piano.
Okay.
So they signed me up for piano lessons when I was 9.
Ah.
And that was great. I loved it. But the thing that really got me was around the same time I discovered the bass. And that was just, to me, that was the best thing ever. Still is.
I know that. I see you play.
So yeah, that's what's really got me into it. 3 of my grandparents were pretty serious musicians. So it was in the gene pool.
Mm.
But my parents weren't particularly crazy about the idea of having a musician in the family.
Yeah.
In spite of the fact that my dad's dad was quite a serious musician. But I think because of that fact, my dad kind of felt the need to move away from that. But yeah, I really got into the bass. Just it kind of took over my whole life, and I did pretty well in school, but hated it. Absolutely hated it. I'm one of these obnoxious people who's always having an existential crisis.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. I'm no fun at parties. I'm generally just no fun at all.
And where'd you grow up in? Did you grow up in California?
Well, Dad was in the military, so we bounced back and forth, but not that much actually. So basically, first half of my childhood was Southern California. Second half was suburbs of DC. That's basically what it was. Yeah. So a little bit of both. But yeah, for me, especially as I got to be a teenager, I kind of didn't fit in, and I just couldn't figure out what life was all about. And music was, for me, the only thing that really made sense to me. So I remember thinking when I was finishing high school, well, I have to now decide what I'm going to, what my job is going to be. And, I couldn't think of anything else to do other than music. I got good grades, so I could have done other things. But as I say, I just hated school. Fortunately, we had a really good band program in school, and that, I threw myself into that as much as one can throw themselves.
Now, were you in cover bands at that time in high school? Did you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Did you go the cover band route in high school? Everybody did.
I mean, I was such a music head. I was just interested in everything. I took if anybody said let's play, I said yes. And for all kinds of stuff. But yeah, tons of cover bands. In those days, that was mostly what's now called classic rock. That's probably what you did too, right?
Oh yeah, classic rock.
Yeah.
A little bit of prog too in high school.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that was kind of my favorite
Floyd,
music.
A little bit of Genesis, that kind of.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I had some friends.
That was a prog head,
Yeah, oh yeah, I loved that stuff. Some of my friends were more into the prog thing, and some were more into the straight up, as we say, classic rock. So, but I loved it all, and I played a lot of jazz as well, and I played in orchestras at the with the school and the county, and just soaked it all up. And I was as interested in Grand Funk Railroad as I was in Xenakis. So it was just anything I could find out about music, I wanted to know.
How about that? Yeah, that's something. So how did you get involved with Windham Hill? Because they were really such a popular label in the 90s and even the 80s. It was just.
Wasn't that amazing?
George Winston.
Yeah.
He was like 1 million records, I think he must have sold at least.
More than that. I mean, it's hard to believe.
Will Ackerman, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really interesting. After high school.
And Michael Hedges, of course, who played with. I mean, he was.
Yeah, Michael Hedges was my best friend.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, after high school, I went to Berklee School of Music in Boston, which was great. But the environment was a little tough, actually. It was a little, well, you probably shouldn't put that many, that many young men in an environment, in a crowded environment in general, without a lot of discipline. That's just kind of not a good idea. It was a little bit Lord of the Flies, but the music part of it was fantastic, and I learned a lot.
I can imagine.
So, then it was kind of funny in those days. They kind of told you it wasn't the official line of the school, but the teachers all said, leave here as soon as you can and get a gig and start playing music. And so that's what I did. I made it through one academic year and got a gig in a disco band, a professional disco band, traveling around the country, playing disco covers, Boogie Oogie Oogie and Disco Inferno and stuff like that.
That is something.
And I lasted in that not a year, maybe 7-8 months, because it was permanent. You just lived on the road, played 5 sets every night.
Oh my gosh!
Traveled, and it was fun. But I realized that I was not cut out to be a professional disco bassist.
Yeah.
And so I went back and stayed with my parents for a while and joined a really good original fusion band, but also did a lot of other gigs around. And that's how I met Michael Hedges. I did a pickup gig in Baltimore one night. You've probably done gigs like this where we played, this was the late 70s. So we played dinner music while the old people, people now younger than me, while they ate dinner at a nice restaurant. And then after dinner, we could kind of play whatever we wanted. So for, dinner, we played, Tea for Two, and Girl from Ipanema, and Wave, things like that. The gentle jazz classics that, those people enjoy listening to. And then after, we could kind of do what we wanted. And so the guy whose gig it was said, why don't you, he knew that I did some bass solo music.
Right.
And he said, why don't you play a couple of your solo pieces? I said, yeah, sure. And Michael Hedges had lent us the PA for the evening. And so he heard me doing this stuff on bass and got really excited, came up to me right after the set and kind of grabbed me by the shoulders and said, man, you're messing around with this same stuff on bass that I am on the guitar. We got to get together and play. And honestly, he was a little kooky. And I was a little afraid,
about that.
I was a little like, oh, I don't know, is this guy on the level?
Yeah.
But the band leader, who's named Lon Ephraim, really good guy, he knew Michael and said, oh no, this guy's, he's really good. You should definitely get together and play with him. But we just hit it off. Michael just hit it off right away. And we realized we had very similar musical interests and musical tastes, that was really something in those days because our tastes were really weird. I mentioned Grand Funk Railroad to Xenakis. And he was on the same page. So, we started talking right away about, all kinds of stuff, serial music and Jimi Hendrix and Van Halen and Joni Mitchell and John Cage and just, all the stuff that we liked.
Yeah.
And we we just became instant friends. But a little while later, he invited me to come to his place. And I think the very first time we got together, we actually played on the demo for his first record for Windham Hill.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's how it happened. He had been out in California a bit for a summer to study electronic music at Stanford. And he had met Will Ackerman there, and Will knew right away that this was somebody he wanted to sign to Windham Hill. And so, I played on the demo, and the demo was accepted. And a few months later, I flew out here to California to play on the record. And then I met Will and the other people and George Winston and all the people at Windham Hill then, and, really got on with them. And they started to ask me to play on a lot of the different records. And I became... Yeah,
I noticed that. I know.
Yeah, it was great. I became sort of the house bassist. It wasn't like they had a house band or anything.
You're like the go-to guy on bass. You were. You really were.
I became like the go-to guy, which was,
You are.
you know, I have to say that was so lucky. I was so lucky because I was horrible when I listened to the stuff I was doing in those days. It was awful, awful. But somehow Will, I guess, heard something in me, and some of those people heard something that, you know, that maybe I was going to be okay someday. And I'm so grateful that they heard that, because it took a long time for me to really get the hang of it. But it was hard to learn in those days. And, you know, actually being in the studio making records was, you know, was really kind of the best way to learn. I don't know. Do you agree with that?
There was no computers.
Yes,
you know,
no
and the mixes were done in final.
That's
you know,
right.
We were putting them up, sliders, and marking it, and then after we did the mix,
that's right.
That was
yeah.
it. Okay, that's it for the night. When you come back, we'll have to set everything up again.
Exactly.
And that was kind of the hardest part back then. You couldn't save anything, so you really had to get it right, even playing and mixing.
Yeah, and you know, maybe you could afford a cheap home studio, you know, maybe, but you know, on musicians' wages, that was even difficult. So yeah, that was the best way to learn, is be in the studio, have the red light on and the pressure's on, and somebody's spending a lot of money.
Oh, I know. I mean, we did our records in a couple days. We didn't have a lot of money. We were on 99 Records, and they didn't have a lot of money to spend.
That's right.
So it was kind of a challenge.
Did it as fast as you could.
We had to be ready for those.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stay up all night trying to, you know, just try to do it in one big block.
Right. Yeah. That's true. The only way we got paid were the live gigs.
That's right.
We never made any money till later on the songs.
Yeah.
But Windham Hill was like such a phenomenon. I mean, it was just.
That was amazing, wasn't it? It was really strange. The only thing I can really attribute it to, tell me if this sounds right to you, is that was right at time, you know, Peter Frampton had come along, and I think what happened is the record companies didn't realize they could sell that many copies of one record. And then Michael Jackson, and then that was really it.
Right.
And they made so much money that way that they let go all of their other projects. So they, you know, they all used to have classical subsidiaries and jazz subsidiaries and subsidiaries for all kinds of stuff. And they let go all those and just focused on pop music. And so I think there was a little hole in the music business at that point for, you know, some other kind of music that wasn't pop music. And I think Windham Hill came along just at that time and made, you know, pleasant sounding music that you could, you know, put on while you're eating dinner. And
right, exactly.
Nice. So I think that's what happened.
Yep.
And I mean, the luck to fall into that for me was just unbelievable. And I'm still grateful for that opportunity. But yeah, that was really my entree into the music business.
You were great on those records. I have this one here.
Yep, oh yeah,
here's a sampler. I have.
Yeah,
it's great. Some great songs on this.
Yeah, by that point, I think I finally learned my way around music a little bit, because I worked so hard, because I so wanted to do well, if nothing else, just for the people who were kind enough to ask me to play with them.
But it paid off, because you've had a great career.
It's been good, especially for a
really
a
great career
like me.
So moving on now, what was this Montreux band?
Yeah, that was was fun. So the Windham Hill was, I mean, it was really great, not only because it was successful, but it was a little bit almost kind of a family vibe, actually. It was, you know, very unusual, not particularly cutthroat. If you did a record that didn't do so well, they wouldn't fire you right away. It was really nice. But one of the things they wanted to do is we put together sort of an all-star band, I guess, of Windham Hill artists. You know, a bunch of us got together to work in a collaborative band, and they really got behind that. And that was fun. So we did 2 records with that band and did okay. You know, not quite as good, I think, as we had hoped. But by that time, things were starting to change. So, yeah. But boy, that was fun. I loved it.
You had fun with that. That's the main thing. And
toured all over the world. Yeah.
Oh, man. That's better yet. I mean, you saw a lot of places. So before we get to your hyperbass, which I really want to talk about, that's really exciting. I want to go to this gentleman right here,
Oh,
Mr. John Gorka.
I mean,
We love John's music. My wife's a big John Gorka fan. She loves folk music, and I really wasn't into folk music until she turned me on to John, his music. We've seen him live a number of times, but really turned me on to was there was a record out of the Valley, song called Furniture.
yeah, that's right. I remember that one.
And your bass is like so original on that, and it's even original on this one also, and a couple others that I had. How did you meet Mr. Gorka?
Well, first of all, I can't say enough good things about John Gorka. Just, I have. It's been such a blessing to know him and to get to play music with him. Just what an amazing musician, wonderful human being, so good for me because I kind of grew up
great songwriter, lyricist, and you feel it
a genius, just a genius. And it was so good for me because I kind of came up in this world of playing as many notes and as complicated chords as possible. That was good music. And he's a person who he can sing one note and just you go, oh my God. And that's just was so good for me to just kind of immerse myself in that. It happened because as we were talking about, I was kind of the go-to guy, and he got signed to Windham Hill. And so, I was put on the session and, met him on the session for the first record I did for him. I think it was Jack's Crows was the first record.
Oh yeah, that's a very good record.
And just loved doing that, loved playing with him, and we got along really well, and toured a fair bit, just the two of us.
Oh, okay.
And some bands too. Yeah, not a ton, but quite a bit for years. Just the two of us would travel around, and just what a spectacular human being.
He has a good following too. I mean. Great following, great song. And Jim Jennings was quite a producer.
Yeah.
See, he passed away. But...
Yeah, John Jennings. Yeah, he was amazing.
John Jennings.
From Mary Chapin Carpenter's band. Just great guy. We did a lot of stuff with him, and just really wonderful. And I don't know, John could have been a lot bigger. I remember there was a point when I was playing with him where everybody kept saying to him, we're ready to take you to that next level. We're ready to move you into that next level. And he always said the same thing. I like this level fine. I'm going to stay right here, because he's so amazing, so talented, so brilliant as a songwriter, as a performer in every way. And, could have been a household name, but he said no. He said no. He liked just doing what he was doing and, kind of having control of his own life, which is important. And that's pretty special when you meet somebody who's able to do that, So can't say enough good about him.
Now, are you going to do anything else with John Gorka in the future, or is there any plans to do more?
Yeah, every once in a while we'll do something together. But the economics don't work out quite as well anymore. Things have changed in the music business.
Right.
But yeah, anytime he asks, I'll always be there, because it's just such a joy to spend time with him and to, play that beautiful, beautiful music. You mentioned the piece Furniture. That was fun. We had done thank you.
Yes.
We had done a couple of records already, and that one we did out in Nashville. And I had just gotten a 10-string bass. I've got it over here. That was made by the company I work with called Zahn. And it's 10 strings, but they're in pairs. So it's 5 sets of 2 strings. And instruments like this aren't that uncommon. A lot of people know about 12-string guitars, same kind of concept. But the pairs are meant to be tuned in octaves on a bass like this. But I took those off right away and put other strings on, and just started tuning it to really all kinds of weird stuff, and have just had a blast with it. So, you can't just play one note on it. Everything is a chord that you play, and it has this huge sound that kind of obliterates everything.
It does.
And so when it came time to do that record,
John
Jennings, I think, produced that
one. It really
one.
stands out. It's like, wow, this bass is...
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they asked me, they said, well, bring
So
the
now
10
that we're
string.
into the,
And I said,
yeah, about that.
are you sure? I mean, it's a really weird instrument, and it, it, as I say, it kind of obliterates everything else in the mix. And they said, no, you got to bring it. My hat's off to them for being so
Yeah,
adventurous.
they took chances. That's
They
great.
did. And so I brought it, and they said, play the 10 string on this tuned furniture. And so I tuned it up to the tonality of the piece, and basically kind of was able to play something that worked with the guitar part, that was similar to the guitar part, but it's, just this huge sound. And I don't remember if maybe they even ended up taking John's guitar part off, but they had to take a lot of other stuff off because it just takes up so much sonic space.
It did.
And it sounded good, but I really wanted it to be stereo. So then I asked if I could do one more track, and just did another part that went with it to do stereo. So yeah, it's this big sound. Really lucky that so fortunate they asked me to do that, to give that a try. And I wouldn't have had the chutzpah to do that on my own. I would never have said, hey, I'm bringing my 10 string bass. We're going to do this.
So folk session, right?
Right. Exactly.
Right. Folk music, you got 10 string bass.
Exactly. And certainly wouldn't have said, you're going to have to take
blast
all the
it up loud. Right.
Right.
That's great. Right.
So that's how that came about.
But anybody that doesn't know your music out there, folks, listen to Furniture, and it is, and now that's going to lead us right into your talk about the hyper bass and how you developed it. I'd love to hear that story.
Thank you. Well, how to start? I guess I would say that sometimes people will ask me if I'm a bass player first or a musician first. I think I'm an artist more than, all those, yes to all those, and it's kind of hard to say. Maybe artist is the most important of those job descriptions. I really, as I said, I was always having these existential crises, and art, the idea of art was a way for me to make sense of the world that I was really always have struggled with, still do. So being an artist, it just seemed like that's the only thing that I could understand, and being a musical artist really has been the only thing that made life work for me. So for me, playing the bass, I'm thinking of the bass not so much as a as a paintbrush, so I can just paint any kind of picture I want with it. That was my perception of it. And I love conventional bass playing, absolutely love it, but I wanted to do other things as well. So for me, it wasn't about doing this and not that. It was doing that, the conventional stuff, and then, building on that and doing stuff around it. That's always been my passion. And so early on, I got interested in all kinds of extensions of the typical idea of what a bass can do. And one of the things I discovered was how much I loved tuning it in different ways, using different tunings. And that also really worked for me on the level of what I was understanding about music, because I'd been studying as much music as I possibly could and learning about harmony. And as a teenager, I learned about just intonation, and that blew my mind and really sent me off on a path that I'm still working on. And so working with these different tunings really helped in that process of kind of understanding all this and thinking about music history and, how all this fits in and who we are and where we're going, all that kind of stuff. And so I got interested in this idea of working with the design of the instrument. I had a bunch of ideas for different things that could be done with the design of the instrument to kind of expand its scope, its possibilities. Again, not to ever lose all the beautiful, amazing stuff that it's done. That was never the goal. It's just building on that and doing additional stuff around it. And I talked to a number of builders about the ideas I had, which included having an instrument where I could not only change the tunings, but I could change the tunings live in real time. So I could start out in one tuning, change to
Oh,
other
okay.
tunings quickly and
That's
efficiently,
pretty
move
neat.
through a whole bunch of tuning. Yeah.
That is
And
great.
I quickly found out that all the builders I talked to, they thought I was
Couldn't
mad.
do it, right?
And most of them said, yeah, that's not possible. And, they didn't, a lot of them were like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But eventually I met this guy, Joe Zahn, out here in California. And he had been coming to our gigs and said, I'd really like you to play one of our basses. I'd really like to build you a bass. And what would you like? And I was very reluctant to go into it because I already had this conversation many times where people said, sometimes they were insulting, that's a terrible idea. They'd say that that's really idiotic. And so he kept bothering me. So finally
that's better yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's what I really want. This is what I really want. And I just basically described this bass to him and got ready for, prepared myself for the typical blowback. And he said, oh yeah, we could do that. Which I think he probably regretted ever since. And so we started right about, I guess in 1989 or 1990, we started working on this bass together. And yeah, there's a number of unusual things about it. We decided to just do a whole bunch of weird stuff on one instrument and just see what worked and what didn't. And he's so brilliant that it all worked. Everybody that worked. I mean, we were really going out on a limb. So it has mechanisms.
Now, is this a one-of-a-kind bass, or is this? Go ahead.
He's built others since. So there are quite a few of them out there. I mean, not a ton. He builds a few a year, I guess. But there's a couple of other hyper bassists out there. I had a lesson with one the other day. It was
so keep going. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but how this works, and how is there a tuning on the?
Yes.
A button or some way to change it on the fly? How do you do that?
Yes, exactly. There are levers at both ends of the instrument, and these allow me to change the tuning instantly. And, this really is kind of cool. I guess it's a little like a pedal steel guitar. But, with an acoustic instrument, this would be pretty hard to do because I'm moving through some pretty drastic tension changes, instantly in the space of an eighth note, And so with the levers, I can change strings, the tuning of strings individually or in groups. And just, I can instantly go to all four strings to a different tuning just with one lever move. So dream come true for me, and just have had so much fun with that. We also, another dream of mine was to do multi-channel music. And so the pickup, there's a separate pickup for each string. So I can take each string and process it differently. I can obviously play them through different speakers, but I can do all kinds of different effects on each string separately.
Oh, that's really neat.
Whatever I want to do. In addition, there are pickups built into the body. So the body is alive, and the body, I can make sound on the body of the instrument. There's also a very long fingerboard that extends all the, as far as we could extend it, and a big cutaway to go with that. So just a bunch of strange stuff that we wanted to try, and it just all worked. And so I'm still playing that original prototype from all those years ago, and it's been beat up all over the world, but it's been just a joy to have.
Now, do you have pedals attached? A number of pedals that you're using with this also?
We wanted to do pedals to change the tuning, so I wouldn't have to use my hands. I mean, what we really wanted to do was both, actually. But the pedal concept was really tricky to figure out how to do that. We kept finding that we had to, here's what our dream is, and here's what's practical, and we kind of had to, we kind of actually made it halfway,
Yeah.
So that's how it's done. But since then, there have been developed electronic ways to change tuning, and so I do that with my feet. Yeah, so I do the electronic tuning changes with my feet and the actual tuning changes with my hands, and those are two. I mean, it's the same concept, but they're kind of two different things. So it's, I mean,
different
in any case,
sounds or different.
yeah, it's just
But
a thrill to be able to do both. It's kind of hard to explain the difference between doing electronic
mm,
tuning versus actual mechanical tuning. I mean, the
mm,
mechanical tuning is more organic, you know, because
right. Yeah,
it's
because you're using
actually
your
a string.
hands, right?
But the electronic stuff is so good now that it's pretty close to organic. So, you know, kind of, it used to be, you know, you always, if you're going to do electronic retuning, I always, you know, planned on that being very sort of inorganic, but less and less as time goes on because the stuff is getting so good.
Now you see you're using the energy bow too, the E-bow.
I do.
I love the E-bow.
Oh man.
Oh, what an
It's
what
so
an invention.
great. It's so great.
But I've never seen it done like on a bass like you do. I know with guitar it's easy to do, but bass, you really have done really great playing that on bass.
Thank you. Yeah, I've gotten to know the inventor pretty well, Greg Heat, really good guy. And apparently he didn't think it could work on a bass. But I didn't know that. I got my first one, I think it was 1987 or so. I had been wanting one for years and just couldn't afford it because I was your, you know, basic starving artist. And my friend Daryl Anger just bought me one as a gift. I mean, what an amazing gift. And I just fell in love with it right away. And I didn't really, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say it's something you just pick up and use right away, but you know, it made sense to me and kind of developed a technique for it. And oh yeah, it's just, I'm to this day, I'm kind of amazed that, thank you. I'm amazed that it isn't more popular for bass players because it's just so valuable. I mean, what you're doing is it's, you know, it's like having a actual bow, you know, a horsehair bow.
Right.
In that, you know, it gives you control over the volume envelope of the sound. And, you know, that's a big deal because sometimes you don't want to do a note that goes doink, you know, you want to do a note that goes wah. Know? And that's, you know,
you're the only one I've seen play it on bass. You're right. I don't see no bass players play this.
Yeah, there's a handful of people that, you know, have started doing it. But yeah, no, I had never seen anybody do it. And yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why. The same thing with the different tunings. You know, things were a lot different in the 80s, you know, when I was kind of starting all this stuff. There wasn't as much information available. So I just kind of
Mitchell did a lot of
Oh man, Joni Mitchell.
Joni Mitchell did a lot of different tunings.
Oh my God.
So you know, it's been
such a master, such a genius.
Yeah.
You know, one of the most important American musicians ever.
I would say so. Yeah, without a doubt.
Oh my God. Just such an inspiration on so many levels. Yeah.
But so many new songs can come out of alternative tunings that it's
it's something
unlimited.
I really
what you can do now. What you have it's just keep going.
I really believe in it. As I say, I've studied so much music, and you know, if you're a music nerd, you study a lot about harmony and you learn all the names of, you know, chords and scales and how they function and all this kind of stuff. And as I studied more about music, I started kind of seeing that fitting into a bigger picture, kind of what I was talking about the kind of expanding role of the bass. I kind of saw that whole thought about harmony kind of existing as part of a bigger picture. It's a little hard to explain, but it's, you know, kind of encompassing just intonation and thinking about things like, if you study harmony in school, they don't really talk about how timbre, how the quality of sound that you're working with affects the nature of the harmony. So, you know, even a major chord can sound sinister if it's played with a, you know, certain set of instruments. So it changes, harmonic function is kind of changed by timbre. So things like that I started seeing. And this what happens when you change the tuning on an instrument is a really big part of that. You change the whole resonance of how an instrument feels and really what it's saying. So you're kind of thinking outside of the box of harmony a little bit and kind of thinking more in this field of, you know, the quality the sounds are having and how the strings are resonating with each other and against each other and and how they're kind of supporting each other. And so for me, it's really been a great way to just continue to explore ideas about music in general that I've been really fascinated with since I was a teenager.
Have you thought about the Chapman stick at all? Have you ever tried that?
I have, and I suck at it.
Oh,
I'm so bad. I'm so bad at it. The only thing I'm really a bass
seems like
player.
such a skill. Like I've seen Tony Levin do it, and he makes it look so easy. You know,
he does.
It's very difficult.
He does. It's so difficult. It's so difficult.
I imagine.
Yeah, no, I don't have the wherewithal to do that. I think one of the things that works for me with the bass is in general less strings. As I say, I have instruments with more than 4 strings, but there's something about the intimacy of just those 4 strings that I think that my brain works well in that capacity. When there's just to get a whole lot of strings, I get kind of, my brain gets kind of diffused. I don't think I'm really all that smart. So just working with 4 strings, to me, that really makes sense. I think maybe that's part of it. When I was growing up, a lot of my friends told me I should play guitar because, I could play pretty well, and I could probably do that. But I'm such a bad guitar player. I've had a guitar my whole life, and I'm really just shockingly bad at it. I just can't do it. So I don't know, something about the bass I just totally connect with, and the other instruments just haven't worked for me.
Now, I wanted to know, you've done so many sessions. Is there any that, I know it's kind of hard to, but any that really stick out, like bands or moments that you can remember that you could, everybody out there, look into the records or the bands?
Yeah, there have been some good ones. It was always great working with Michael Hedges because we were so close, and we really were kind of exploring together.
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
One of my favorite recordings. So some of what I did with him, I am not proud of. I played on his kind of seminal record, Aerial Boundaries, and what I did is pretty bad. I was really struggling at that point. But there's a recording, it's not that well known, that we did together of a cover of If I Needed Someone, the George Harrison tune.
Oh, okay.
And it was kind of later in the process of working together. And, we really just were feeling it, just everything really came together for that one. So that's one that I really feel proud of. I'm really proud of the records we did with a group called Attention Deficit. It's a trio with the drummer from Primus, Tim Alexander, and the guitar player from Testament, Alex Skolnick. And we got to do together to do just kind of experimental instrumental music. And man, it was fun. It was so much fun. So it's but those records also aren't well known, but I'm really proud of those records. It was that was a great experience. But so much of the recording I've done, I just have learned so much from. I just feel so lucky that people keep asking me to play on their music, because I always learn something.
I'm sure you do. You're so good. I mean,
and as I say, that's for me,
why not?
I always feel like I'm getting better when I do it, because when the red light is on and you have to do a good job, then you can really drill down and see how are you playing in time, are you playing in tune, and are your ideas good, right. And is this music saying anything, is it expressing anything?
True.
So it's doing so much recording has helped. I think that's helped me become a better musician. So I'm so grateful.
That's great. Well, we're running out of time here, but I want to go over what your latest record, Small Moments, Man Thing, was your label, right? Is that your record label?
It is. I mean, I'm kind of like everybody else these days. I just put out
same here.
Records myself, and so it's on.
That's all you can do.
Yeah, that's right.
It's so much out there, so much music out there. So what are you going to be doing? More shows live in the coming months ahead or next year? What are the plans?
I'm always doing stuff. If people want to keep track of what I'm doing, I'm I have a website, and I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook and
I'll make
Instagram
sure
and TikTok and
right.
Twitter. So I try to keep everybody up to date on that. I'm going to be doing a tour in Canada. I'm starting in
Okay.
a couple of weeks with my friend Callum Graham, who's another great acoustic guitar player. And just I'm always doing stuff, always recording, always
That's great.
performing. And I teach a lot. So if people are interested in
Oh,
lessons,
okay.
let me know. And so
I
all good.
will. Now, you ever come to New Jersey, New York? I've got to see you play
Oh,
in
I was
person.
just out there. And we played did a little tribute concert to Michael Hedges. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry about that. But yeah,
That's okay.
traveling is getting a little tricky. It's getting a little
I'm
expensive
sure it
for
is.
those of us who kind of aren't in mainstream music and don't make the big bucks. It's getting a little expensive, but I'll do it as long as I can.
Now, what do you think the future of music is now
Oh, I mean, that's a great
with all this
question.
AI generated
Yeah.
music? And you think, what do you think that's going to do in the future with artists like ourselves and other artists trying to put out music and others just putting a song together in like 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just very scary.
It really is. I agree with you, and I don't have a good crystal ball. I I know that there's so much amazing music to be done. Honestly, I know it's kind of tempting to think everything's been done. I don't think that at all. I think that there's so much amazing stuff to
No,
be
there's some good
done.
music out there. You just got to
Oh,
find
there's a
it.
ton. There's a
That's the
ton of
main
great
thing.
music out there, and
Yep,
there's so much more that can be done. So I'm hopeful that we'll kind of open our minds a little bit and kind of look for new things that we can do in music. But the AI it's really a reckoning, I think, for
it
us.
is.
It might be different from all the other technological challenges we've had and music business challenges we've had. This one
Yep,
might be a different one. So we'll see. I wish I knew what's going to happen, but music is so important. It's such an important part of being human. I'm going to
it
just
is. It is.
keep.
And people still go back to the older music, and I think because there was such great music done in that the whole era when we started recording, able to record,
Absolutely, just amazing stuff.
you know,
Such
with
so much
minimal
amazing.
equipment, back then, and
Right,
everything.
right. I don't know how they did it. Just amazing.
I, I mean, Pet Sounds, for instance, right? How
Oh my
incredible that
God.
sounded.
I mean,
It's just
what was he thinking
and
that he came up with this amazing stuff? Just the
yeah,
orchestration alone is just mind
yeah.
blowing. Yeah.
Well, the Wrecking Crew helped with that too. I
Phew,
mean,
so
you had
good.
Neil Campbell on the record,
Yeah.
I think somewhere.
So great.
So,
So great.
but
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, this has been a real pleasure and a privilege to have you on. You're one of the best bass players in the world.
Oh, thank you so much, Dennis. I
You
so
keep
appreciate
doing
it.
it, and I want to thank you for coming on
Thank you so much. I
anytime.
hope
And
we
maybe
get
we'll
to meet
talk
in
again
person someday.
sometime.
Okay, I hope so.
I hope so. All right.
Th
Take care
th
now. Nice to
Thank
meet
you,
you.
Dennis.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.